Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just as a reminder, if you have a cell phone on you, please turn it off. We have quite a few announcements tonight, but we were asked that before we begin, we all give a moment of silence and respect for Delbert Shorty Belton, the World War II vet who was senselessly beaten to death recently in Spokane, Washington. So, a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. Recently, the board got together to discuss some things as far as the roundtable is concerned, and there was a suggestion made that for parking for some vets or anybody with a disability, and it was suggested that this section of the parking lot over here, directly outside the windows here, if you could leave that open for vets and anybody with a disability, there's plenty of parking on either side of the church. And we'll see how that works out for anybody to try to make things a little easier. Also, we need speakers. Please let us know if anyone knows a World War II vet who would like to come and speak. Even if only a short presentation, we can find another speaker to fill out the time. We are concerned that some of the presentations are shorter than we are used to, so we are addressing this by seeking some other speakers to present to for. September 11th, Lebanon High School, Patriot Day Concert. It's free, but ticket required. Lebanon Community Concert Band and soloist, Jessica Weedman, and Sergeant Steve Moore, keynote speaker, first responder Brian Smith. There's flyers on the table outside with further information. September 12th, Legacies of Leadership, 70th Anniversary of Normandy tour presentation at Lebanon Chamber of Commerce. The tour is an 8-day Normandy immersion in late June 2014 and examines leadership decisions during the Normandy campaign, both good and bad decisions, both Allies and Axis powers. Roundtable members Len Schott and John Schlegel will share comments about their tour experience from 2011. There's also flyers on the table outside concerning that. September 19th is Military Appreciation Luncheon with a tribute to the American Red Cross. The Red Cross is recipient of this year's General Frank Smoker Beyond the Call Award. Wes and Amy Delaware, World War II Roundtable members, are one of the sponsors of this luncheon hosted annually by the Lebanon County Chamber of Commerce. It's a great honor to host keynote speaker Major General Walter Podlosky, a PA native and PSU alum, served as the commanding general of the 28th Infantry Division, Pennsylvania Army National Guard from 1998 to 2003, when he was appointed as the Director of Military Support, Homeland Defense, National Guard Bureau, Washington, D.C. on October 13, 2003. His address will be the World War II history of the PA National Guard 28th Infantry Division, which is the division that marched down the Champs-Élysées in August 1944 in the victory parade after the liberation of Paris. There's also information concerning that on the table outside. Next, September 29th, there's an honor bus, and I'm going to invite Becky up here to give you further information on that.
Hi, my name is Becky Lacey. I'm one of the co-founders of the originally World War II and now Korean War era honor bus. I see some of my honor bus veterans out there. Some of you are happily wearing your caps. We have our 10th trip on the 29th of September, and I have in my hand applications, and we still have openings on our buses. If you've never heard of Honor Bus before, well, we've taken 600 World War II and now older Korean War era veterans to Washington, D.C. for free We started in 2008. We have yet to miss one, lose one, or hurt one. And thank you, Lord, that we have been able to host a Day of Gratitude that has long been overdue. It is sponsored and paid for, first of all, by my students, now former students, I just retired, and the community of Central Pennsylvania, and a lot of volunteers. We feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We give you a t-shirt, and we give you a cap, and a couple of you have them on. We give you a tote bag full of all sorts of goodies. We give you a send-off ceremony you're never going to forget. We treat you to lunch. We take you to your memorials. We take you to Arlington. We bring you back to Post 26 in Billsburg for a welcome home dinner and send you home tired and safe. It is all to say thank you, veterans. And if you have never done an honor bus, you've never been on one and you qualify to go, please, please don't put it off, because we never know from one trip to the next whether we'll have the funds to have another trip, because we live hand to mouth. And we also don't know what the future will bring. So please allow us to honor you, pamper you, and give you a day you'll never remember. Or forget. Or something. Who's the old one in the room? And when you'll never forget it, I will, because I'm the crazed one who everybody says, who's Becky? She's the one that looks like she's about to go crazy. But anyway, somebody has some questions you want to ask me about Honor Bus. And then the people of gone can tell me if I told the truth in the sanctuary. Who wants to ask me a question? Yes?
Becky, can they leave their cars parked at each of those locations then for the day?
Absolutely. We leave from the Dauphin County Technical School over in Locust Lane, and you can leave your car there. In the Mechanicsburg Middle School, you can leave your car there. If you need to get picked up, you tell us that, and we find someone to come get you. Only thing you can't bring is your wife. This is a veterans-only thing, and we have a lot of widowers, and we want vets to meet vets and learn to make friends. Anybody else have a question? Please, please, please apply. Yes, sir.
When is this going to be?
The 29th of September.
You've got the applications now.
Yes.
I'd like to have one.
Okay. Did we take you?
I've been there, but I talked to a guy today.
Okay.
To go a veteran.
Because I think you were one of our wreath layers, weren't you?
Huh?
Didn't you lay a wreath at the unknowns?
I went with him. And
Yes. Mm-hmm.
we were gone back maybe 2-3 years ago.
Yes, you were. Anybody else want an application? Please just stick up your hand. We'll give you one right now. Anybody else? Korean War era and World War II. Come on. All papers. Yes, please. Take your parents, take your dad. If you're under 65. Okay. If you're under 65, you can serve as a volunteer that day, but you can't take any photos of yourself on Medicare. Medicare will pay for it. Okay.
Before Becky sits down, I think we owe her a great round of applause.
Without your service, I could never have been a rebellious teenager. No. You honorably discharged. People say, well, I wasn't in combat. Yes, you were. You went where you were sent. It rained something terrible, didn't it? Rained this way.
Okay, thank you, Becky, for that. Appreciate all the hard work you do. Is there anybody else that has any announcements?
My name is Mary Beth Farrick. My father was a member of the 490th Bomb Squadron. We're going to realize. Well, usually everybody.
name is Mary Beth Barrett, and my father, Joe Barrett, was one of the 490th Bomb Squadron Burma Bridge Busters. They will be having their reunion here in Hershey in September, and we'd like to invite you to a meet and greet to stop by and meet these gentlemen. It will be September 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Comfort Inn and Suites right over there on Route 39. So if you'd like to meet them, please stop by. They'd love to meet you too. They'd love any stories you have to tell, and they will certainly be telling you stories. It's the 26th of September from 4 to 6 at the Comfort Inn and Suites on Route 39. I don't. I didn't bring them. But you can look it up. If you look up on Google the 490th Bomb Squadron Burma Bridge Busters or the Burma Bridge Busters, you should be able to get some information there. Any other questions? Please come by and meet my gents. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich?
Yeah, next Thursday is Vietnam Roundtable, 8,000 Dairy Street. We're going to have a tunnel rally. So next Thursday at 8,000 Dairy Street, Vietnam veterans, 7:30. Jim Imperato from Lower Paxton Township.
Thank you, Rich. Anybody else have anything to add to the good of the cause? Okay, before we go any further, is there anybody in the audience that has trouble hearing? There are some devices available for you. Cliff is holding them up. If anybody would like to try one, just raise your hand and somebody will come around and give you one. Okay, moving on. Next month's speaker, Ray Bickle, B-24 Navigator, assigned to the 8th Air Force, 467th Bomb Group, 790th Squadron. He flew 35 missions and was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. He will be our speaker next month. So now, we're going to introduce Al Richwine. He served with General MacArthur. He's going to be assisted by his daughter, Cindy. And also there's a video in this presentation somewhere that you'll find very interesting if you haven't seen it before. And we want to thank Bill Kimmick for providing that video. So without further ado, Al, you're up.
Yes, that is my picture up there. 19 years old at that time, so. And the next slide shows my history of my trip to the Pacific. I originally was a bank teller in the National Bank of Pembroke and graduated. That I'm retired now from Mellon Bank. But as a teller in the National Bank, I had as a customer Colonel Lemon, who happened to be the commandant at New Cumberland Induction Center. And when he was in the bank one day, I said, I know my lottery number's coming up. Is there any chance that I could get into finance school? And he said, you can get in finance school in 2 weeks. He was going to assign me already to Fort Bend Harrison, Indiana. So when those 2 weeks are up, sure enough, he called me and he said, you can be ready. That was on a Tuesday. If you can get over here on Thursday or Friday, you won't be going through the regular induction process. But they put me on the Pullman train to go to Indianapolis to enter Fort Bend Harrison as a recruit. We arrived at Fort Bend Harrison, Indiana, at the finance school, and they were experimenting because this is the first, we had the first unit that would be going through the school, and they had us assigned with 1 week of basic training, and after that 1 week, and you can imagine what they put us through in that basic training. After that 1 week, they said, this is not going to work for the entire Army, but you've qualified. And that's the range in going through the frog leap and all of the things that you followed and remember. But I should ask, could I have a raise of hands or standing of all the veterans of World War II? And that would be being in the service. They called World War II over on December 31st of 1946. So could I have a show of hands of the... Okay. That included the Navy and all the other ancillary units of the armed forces at that time. We finished Fort Bend Harrison in about 5.5 weeks, and they put us on the train to Camp Brooks, Texas, which is an Army hospital. We were there for another 5 or 6 weeks, and we took off by train load to Great Falls, Montana, where we set up our finance office, and we were trying out, of course, the Armed Forces system of finance. So our main office was in Great Falls, Montana, and our auxiliary office was in Spokane, Washington, and I had the opportunity to set up those auxiliary offices all through the Pacific. But if you ever get to Glacier National Park, it's one of the most beautiful parks in the national system. But I had the opportunity to ride the train through Glacier National twice during that winter as we set up the auxiliary office in Spokane. So after the arrival of Brookfield, Texas, we headed out for Great Falls, Montana, and took the troop train through Great Falls. And here at the top of the morning, for 6 months we had to endure for that beautiful scenery in Great Falls. After being in Great Falls for that length of time, we finally broke out and went to Camp Stoneman, where we boarded the barge and went down the river at California to Oakland and boarded the Lure Line, which was the flagship of the Matson Line. And it had just come from the shop, had been outfitted for about 10,000 troops in one ship. We were going out through the harbor and under the Golden Gate Bridge, and the captain came on the announcement system that we were headed to Australia, but on the maiden voyage of the Lure Line as a troop ship. And we were going solo without any convoy protection at all. So with about 2,500 troops in our unit, we had the opportunity to sleep in the ballroom of the Lower Line. And being the flagship, that was the equivalent to the Queen Mary in the Atlantic. And all the guys, of course, appreciated that, especially the 19-year-olds or the 20-year-olds by that time. Well, we had a zigzag trip to Brisbane, Australia, by going 10 degrees and then cutting the compass another 10 degrees the other way. So we went zigzag the whole way to Australia, and got there in 10 days when it was taking convoys 5 to 6 weeks. So we were appreciated that, but we pulled into the harbor in Australia, and we were told that our tent unit was to be in the midway of the Ascot Railway, or the raceway, and when you get awake in the morning, your office is at 5-story building, and there was only one 5-story building in Brisbane, because it was more like a western town as far as most of the U.S. citizens were concerned. In the 5-story building, our headquarters and finance office was on the 3rd floor, and the 4th floor was General McKinney's office, and the 5th floor was MacArthur's office. And we could look out our window and see little Arthur playing, and he was about 5 years old at that time, playing in the garden to the enclave, and I do have pictures of that today as well. That you see that wonderful mansion that they lived in, but they had only gotten there a few days a few months before, on their escape from Corregidor. And I'm told, can't verify this anywhere, but that they had 4 PT boats, 2 of them carrying fuel from the Philippines down to the East Indies and through the Gulf that separates New Guinea from Australia. And you have to keep in mind that a lot of these islands were taken at the efficient landings of the Navy when they were stood offshore and bombed the islands, the Solomons and Guadalcanal and Bougainville, and there are a couple others that are listed on this map. But we were in the Ascot Raceway about 5 or 6 weeks before we shipped out on a Japanese banana boat, and they kept to the old freighters because they were very, very poor targets from the Japanese airships. We went the whole way through Mackay and Townsville and settled in Port Moresby, New Guinea. We were there for close to 8 or 10 months. I had the first R&R at that point back in Mackay. But when we landed in Mackay out of New Guinea, I came down with the combination of dengue fever and malaria, and spent the first 10 days of my R&R in the hospital. But the other 4 days I appreciated being at the Coral Sea, and that's what most of the residential men took as their vacation. In the meantime, we had squadrons of B-24s and P-38s, because the B-29s, B-17s are all used in Europe. And we felt we were almost a forgotten war in the Southwest Pacific. But I assure anybody that was in the China-Burma theater or in the Philippines to make yourselves known and become part of this lecture series. We stayed in Port Moresby and landed the B-24s in the Metal Railroad Airways. It took us all the finance men and the hard-working crews had to lay down the metal airstrips in the mud because the B-24s couldn't land in the mud. They were tricycle landing gear, of course. And the P-38 was the mainstay of the fighter pilots. That's the double fuselage twin engine. It's a beautiful ship. I guess we've had that up on the screen here. And after we spent this amount of time in Port Moresby, we moved over the hump in New Guinea to the Australian part of New Guinea, and what's known as the Markham Valley, and we kept as our satellite office in Lae, which is out on the southwest point of New Guinea. They had the mud situation at Lae, but one of my close friends was stationed out there, and he handled the branch office, but we had our largest office in Nanjing. At one time we had 200 employees in that branch that serviced the payrolls. And I have a picture of that also, of about $500,000 worth of local currency piled on my office, which is a card table. He did a lot of improvising during the service during the war. You may recall that that's also the time that there was one of the Rockefeller's sons was a missionary in western New Guinea, and never heard of from since. But the western New Guinea was still probably the second generation of cannibalism from real life. But I've had some pictures also of the natives of there. So we still stayed in Port Moresby and Nanjing until I had another case of malaria fever, but you won't believe what the cure was in my system. I had taken 36 aspirin the first 24 hours. And the second 24 hours I took 24 aspirin, and the third 12 aspirin. But it broke the fever, and that's the only reason why we named aspirin the miracle drug for that time as well. I'll let you read the slide on the Lae, but that looks very much the same as it did 60-some years ago. Well, we moved then into Hollandia, which was one of the most bombed out areas. Our fellows destroyed probably 5,000 or 6,000 Japanese planes that we also bombed out and firebombed the Hollandia area, which was just across the border, really, of Netherlands, East Indies. New Guinea is really parceled out, and like 2/3 of the entire island is the British, or is Netherlands controlled, and the other third is divided half and half to Papua New Guinea, which is indigent, and also the Australian New Guinea. Well, we moved on with a branch office in Biak, which is an island halfway toward the Philippines, and preparing for the entire time for the big battle of the Leyte Gulf. We went in there with MacCarther on the third day, and we went in by landing craft, which meant they left the front end of the craft down, and you jumped off into knee-high water and waded into the main office. We've established our finance office on the cliffs overlooking the landing area, and we had already broken the Japanese code, and they told us they were going to have a parachute landing either on the shore or on the cliffs above that very dusk evening. And we discovered that we only fired one shot in our compound, which was right adjacent to the landing of the parachuters. And I guess they got half of our men into tents before we subdued the Japanese, and of course killed all of them. But they did have the landing, and we stood in the foxholes in the next outfit right where they landed, and we fired only one shot standing in the foxholes on the canvas bed army cots on the edge, because they were filled with at least 2 feet of water. So when we got awake in the morning, we heard all this chatter. The Filipinos were there butchering a water buffalo, because they don't kill them ordinarily, because they use them as draft animals. But they had a butchering that morning before daylight, and had a laying the steaks and all the beef out on the palm leaves.
Dad, that was because of your shot.
So that we cleaned up the Leyte area before we moved up to the Samar, and we had a branch finance office out on Samar, which is another of the islands. And when we were out there, we hadn't had ice cream for a half a year. So we traded a B-24 radio that had been shut down. I had to crash land for a ice cream freezer So that was the treat that we had before we moved into Clarkfield. And our longest stay in the Philippines was, of course, Clarkfield. But we had a lot of pictures from Manila, which was known as the Pearl of the Orient. And they had many unconscionable destruction of hospitals, and the one picture I think I have is from the Rizal Stadium, which was a great two-day battle, and the thing is bombed out entirely. Met one of my high school classmates in Manila, and we had an ice cream date in one of the bombed out hotels. I think I have a slide in there of a B-24, the Super Duper. If you'd like to see that, we'll have it. And also the P-38, which is a beautiful fighter ship. They had a record on the P-38 of 6-1 shot down. They accounted for 6 Japanese planes before they accounted for one of ours. And we were just across the island range from Subic Bay, which is the naval establishment. And we boarded another Japanese frigate to go up to the South China Sea to take over Ieshima. Ieshima was a small airstrip island off the western coast of Okinawa, and the Okinawa battle was quite extensive. I think it lasted over a month, and they were landing on the defeat of Okinawa. They were landing on the southern end of the island until they get up midpoint. They decided the Japanese decided they didn't want to take the airstrip at Ieshima. Well, that airstrip started on the beach and came inland, and that's where Ernie Powell was riding in the Jeep and took a barrage of shotguns from the Japanese in their Jeep, and they all dove to the ditch alongside of the airstrip. And the people who were riding with him said, "Keep your head down, Ernie. They're pretty sharp in their shooting." But Ernie didn't listen to them. He raised his head and took a bullet right through his brain. So that's where Ernie was killed. And I have pictures of the monument that they had erected, because he was killed on April 28th. And that was the time that the Japanese were going into the island. So they had to clean out the island. We arrived in Hiroshima following MacArthur in about 2 months after that. So the Battle of Hiroshima was pretty lengthy too, for being a small airstrip island. Well, we were sitting on Hiroshima when the first atomic bomb was dropped at Hiroshima. Probably 2 or 3 months before the bomb was dropped, and in the meantime, our field personnel were kept in touch with the Japanese emissaries, and after the first bomb at Hiroshima, we heard nothing from them on August 6th. We dropped the second bomb on August 9th, and we didn't hear anything until overnight. They were on our doorstep. They wanted to settle the peace treaty, open negotiations. Well, they knew from the beginning there was no negotiating as far as the treaty with Japan. It was unconditional. And sure enough, on the 10th, they had their plane landed on our airstrip at Hiroshima, and with 16 emissaries. And I was able to get the names of the emissaries when I have it on one of the slides that they were crawling out of the Mitsubishi bomber, and just as it was, our C-54 was right there, and that's equivalent to the president's plane today. They took all 16 of them in one bomber, which was marked by a red cross. Now that's the height of some humility that I ever came across, but they nevertheless landed on our airstrip and had the emissaries crawl out the front end of the bomber to board our C-54 to go to Manila to board the Big Mo, which then they worked out the treaty on coming back up on the Big Mo to Tokyo Bay. And we have luckily, did Chuck find this? Chuck found a video of the signing of the treaty in Tokyo Harbor, and I'll let them put that on now. Okay.
We'll be ready for it.
If you memorize the names when they were getting out of the plane, you should be able to read them off. But you'll see MacArthur signing it as well.
Representatives of the Allied powers to witness the final capitulation. Fleet Admiral Nimitz, Pacific Fleet Commander, and Admiral Halsey welcome MacArthur and his Chief of Staff, General Sutherland, aboard. Admiral Nimitz escorts General MacArthur to the Missouri's veranda deck, where the 20-minute ceremony is to take place. It is Sunday, September 2nd, 1945. Examine souvenir cards bearing the Japanese flag, special mementos of the occasion. And now, in a Navy launch, the Japanese surrender party arrives. They are headed by Agent Mamoru Shigemitsu, Foreign Minister of the Japanese Surrender Cabinet, who was wounded by a Korean patriot in Shanghai years ago and walks on an artificial leg. For 3 years and 9 months for America and Britain, which was the brutal, costly eastern half of the most horrible worldwide war in human history, is now within minutes of ending for good. General MacArthur speaks. We are gathered here, representatives of the major warring powers, to conclude a solemn agreement whereby peace may be restored. The issues involving divergent ideals and ideologies have been determined on the battlefields of the world, and hence are not for our discussion or debate. The terms and conditions upon which surrender of the Japanese imperial forces is here to be given and accepted are contained in the instrument of surrender now before you. As Supreme Commander of the Allied Powers, I announce it my firm purpose, in the tradition of the countries I represent, to proceed in the discharge of my responsibilities with justice and tolerance, while taking all necessary dispositions to ensure that the terms of surrender are fully, promptly, and faithfully complied with. I now invite the representatives of the Emperor of Japan and the Japanese government and the Japanese Imperial General Headquarters to sign the instrument of surrender at the places indicated. Mr. Shigemitsu comes to the surrender table. These dramatic first pictures were made by newsreel war correspondents and Army and Navy cameramen, and were specially flown back from Tokyo. The time is 9:05 a.m. The Japanese have been on board exactly 10 minutes. Signs for the Japanese Army. The surrender documents by which Japan agrees to lay down arms completely and to obey all Allied orders issued by General MacArthur were printed by the Army on rare parchment found in a basement in ravaged Manila. General MacArthur signs as Supreme Allied Commander. First pen used is presented to General Wainwright of Corregidor. The second pen to British General Percival, Commander at the surrender of Singapore. MacArthur uses 6 pens in all, affixing what will be the most important signature in Japan to the document that ends permanently that nation's regime of terror and aggression.
himself, Admiral Chester Nimitz, signs. Behind Nimitz are the 3rd Fleet's Admiral Halsey and Admiral Sherman, famed amphibious commander. General Su Young Chang, Chief of Military Operations for the Chinese National Council, signs for China. Admiral Sir Bruce Fraser, Commander of the British Pacific Fleet for the United Kingdom. Lieutenant General Kumsa Nikolaevich Derivianko for Soviet Russia. General Sir Thomas Blaney for Australia. Colonel Lawrence Moore Cosgrave for Canada. General Jacques Leclerc, hero of Africa and Paris, for France. Admiral C.E.L. Helfrich for the Netherlands. Air Vice Marshal L.M. Issett for New Zealand. Concluding the brief history-making ceremony, General MacArthur expresses a wish. Let us pray that peace be now restored to the world, and that God will preserve it always. These proceedings are closed. Swarms of United States aircraft fly in formation overhead as the ceremony ends. The final United Nations victory has been won. The war is over. Peace is here.
I consider myself very lucky to have followed MacArthur the whole way. And even though we had a couple bullet holes through our tents, and we had many times encountered enemy fire, we still came out whole, and I didn't have to go into any landings except to follow him. We go in the same boat, even though we were a finance unit. But in lately we covered the mud. In Clarkfield we had the chance to visit Manila. If there are any questions you'd like to raise, I think now would be the time to just raise your hand and
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Al, for the presentation. Thank you for your service.
thank you.
And also thank you to Cindy, your daughter, for helping to put together this presentation. It was excellent, very good. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Al?
No, I just wanted to know where the Missouri is located now.
She just wants to know where the Missouri is located now. Pearl Harbor. Anybody else have any questions?
Do you know what happened to the Philippines Gold Reserve after the war?
Repeat the question.
Do you know what happened to the Commonwealth of Philippines Gold Reserve after the war? war.
The gold reserve of the Philippines, what happened to it after the war? He was asking about the gold reserve of the Philippines, what happened to it after the war. You have any idea?
My hearing's getting bad. I want to remind you that our engineers, headquarters squadron engineers, went into Atsugi Aerodrome, which was the Colorado Springs of the U.S. Air Force, a D-2 to make sure that the airstrip was satisfactory to land our troop ships on. But we got in there a little ahead of time.
The gentleman in the back was asking the gold reserves of the Philippines, what happened to it after the war? Do you have any idea?
The
Gold reserves?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
He doesn't know. Any other questions?
They dumped that in the bay when the Japs came, and then they tried to recover it.
Did you get a response? You dumped it in the bay? Okay. I might head over there and look around a little bit. Anybody over here?
One map that you saw was of downtown Tokyo, and we got a chance to cross over the moat of the Imperial Palace. We left the Imperial Palace unscathed as far as the air firing. The Japanese buildings and homes were pretty much wood constructed, and the army decided to firebomb Tokyo. So when we got there, Tokyo was a burned out city, except for the Imperial Hotel. And that was designed and built by Franklin Lloyd Wright, of all people. And MacArthur kept that clean because he set up his offices there. But we stayed at Atsugi Aerodrome for about a month and did our payroll. I had to go into Yokohama for my invasion currency.
Al, we have a question over here.
Hi, Al, you mentioned the occupation currencies.
Yes.
So as I remember, we had occupation currencies for the Philippines and then again for Japan.
Yeah. Well,
can you talk about how that was administered? You know, like, was it guarded very securely? Was it, where did they print it? All this type of stuff?
If they stole the money, they'd have a hard time getting away with it.
Well,
And,
I have some of that.
but we did have also Dutch New Guinea occupation currency.
But did the GIs actually use this money? Or was this for like local purchases and...
No, it was money. Yeah.
Okay, but the troops generally, when they're up in these forward operating areas, most of their money was sent back home, right?
Yeah.
Well, was it still...
And military savings.
Yeah.
Taken off.
But if they wanted some cash, did they come into...
Oh yeah.
Into your office? You wouldn't give them dollars though, right? It would always have to be occupation currency.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because we didn't want any of that currency floating around in the community.
But what about, like he was saying, what about the currencies that these occupied countries had before the Japanese invaded? Was that money still out there and of any value?
It had no value other than
No?
collectors.
Oh, because like, for instance, the Dutch guilder, that was the same Dutch guilder that was used back in Holland, right?
Yeah.
So if you could have come across some of that, you would have... Well, what about MacArthur? Did you ever get to see him? Was he as regal? Did he have this imperial presence? And what was your impression of him?
He was a diminutive Japanese. He wasn't any taller than I.
No, but I mean the way that he acted towards his troops. MacArthur. Was he, put it this way, was he worshipped like Patton was?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. He always rode the white horse, too.
And he always had an immaculate uniform on?
Yeah.
Yeah? Thank you.
I don't know whether any of you picked out the picture of Wainwright when he was after the march, the death march, but he's well emaciated. He was in one of the slides too.
Al, you were with the general in the building, one floor above or below?
Talk a little louder, Chuck.
I say you were in the same building with MacArthur, one floor apart, and there was an elevator. Did you guys ride the same elevator? And if you did you salute him?
Oh, yeah. we didn't have to salute after the first occasion.
You only saluted the first time. That's good.
He said, don't bother.
Anybody else?
Well, it was especially tour for me as a young. Go ahead, Sydney.
I just wanted you to tell them about, you said you were in the foxhole and you were standing on the cots. And then the next morning, the natives were butchering. But you forgot to tell them why they were butchering that ox.
Yeah, I thought I'd touch that, but they don't ordinarily eat the oxen. That's a delicacy, but when it was laying there.
Why was it laying there? You forgot that part.
Yeah.
Why was the oxen dead? You forgot that part. Who killed the ox?
Who killed the ox? And why?
Who killed the ox?
Can you repeat the question?
Your story about the oxen that was dead?
Yeah.
Who killed it?
We don't know.
You don't know. You weren't going to ask any questions either. Look at it, get the hell out of it.
I'm sure the Japanese didn't.
Blame it on that.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, is there anybody else?
Sir, a friend of mine from Holy Trinity Lutheran Church used to tell me about filling paperwork for President Roosevelt. She's a physical therapist, and she's seen me walking at the Holy Trinity Lutheran on Coco and Granada to the Hershey Plaza Apartments. She said, Bill, you remind me of the guys I had a rehab in Bethesda Naval Hospital. She said they never gave up, neither do you. Her name was Dottie Hayes.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay, well then we're going to wrap it up. Again, thank you, Al. Appreciate it. Please don't forget to visit the Helmet Committee on your way out. And next Thursday is the Vietnam Roundtable. Thank you. See you next month.
Yeah, I saw that.
Essential trimmer.